Let's see what the results have been. So the white population remains dominant at 76%, African Americans around 14%. For one or more in-school suspensions, African Americans, 18.6% of African American students are disciplined, compared to 6.9% of white students. For one out-of-school suspension, African Americans are still much more likely. And for more than one out-of-school suspension, there's almost a two times the rate, which is just astonishing. Obviously, more reforms are needed. In many ways, Knox County's suspension policies and its suspension categories mirror state law. So we are calling for an overhauling of not only local policies, but state policies as well, to eliminate those vague categories. We recommend that we finally conduct the staff training that was recommended in 2007. That we stop exclusionary or push-out practices wherein students who get more and more disciplinary infractions are disciplined more and more frequently until they just drop out. And finally, I'm going to talk about this more a little bit later, but PBIS and restorative justice programs are alternate methods that can be used. A rather unlikely example of success is the Baltimore City Public Schools. We all know that Baltimore has had its troubles, but between 2006, when they instituted an overhaul of their discipline policy, and 2009, they saw a 58% drop in suspensions. I took some screenshots from their discipline policy, which is available in its entirety on the internet. And the first thing that they talk about is promoting positive relationships between students and between staff and students. They also lay out disciplinary infractions and the appropriate responses in a very, very clear way. Knox County has a tiered response system, but it's set out just in a list. And this is an incredibly effective visual for a teacher to know exactly what is appropriate for them to do in any given situation. They also explain the levels of intervention in a very detailed way. Okay, so PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. It's a 3-tiered system of interventions rather than saying discipline. It addresses the needs of individual students and concentrates on finding the root causes of behavior instead of just punishing children. This has been around for a while, but it's recently being implemented in schools on a larger scale. So this is the typical diagram that you see, that most students, about 80%, need to know the rules, need to know what's going on, maybe get verbal warnings in class, and that's all they need. But some students will continue to misbehave. So the teacher can go and implement self-assessment, like, what am I doing right today? What am I doing well? What am I supposed to be doing? They can have individual sessions with the student to check in. And it's just a little bit more intense. And then finally, at the very top, are students who something else is going on with them. So you can get a behavior support team, all the people who know the student best. Their parents, community members, teachers, counselors, get together and form a very targeted plan to help the student through whatever it is that they're experiencing, to do disability evaluations if necessary. And again, that is reserved for only 5% of students. Restorative justice is a kind of alternative system, but it works well with PBIS. It creates supportive relationships within a school, especially for students who may not have learned how to verbalize their feelings and how to deal with the things going on in their lives. And it helps them find that they can trust their teachers, they can trust the staff at the school, and they can trust their peers with their problems rather than acting out. An example of success is in Oakland, California. They started this as a pilot program, and in just a couple of their schools, and they're expanding into more of their schools, that they'll have restorative justice coordinators who meet with groups of high-risk students and have regular conversations about what's going on in their life. And it's been extremely successful. Some other resources, there is a wealth of information on this topic, but these are some other resources that I found to be particularly helpful, especially the studies on disparate discipline and, of course, the Department of Education, the guidance package is all online. And the Dignity in Schools Model Code on Education and Dignity was a great resource for the federal government when they were drafting their own guidance documents, and in many ways it goes even further than the federal government has gone already, and I think it's a wonderful resource just for what we aspire to. And now I am ready for any questions that you may have.
All right.
I just have a question about how many law students are involved in this program, and how many cases involving disciplinary issues in high school did you work on last year?
I was going to say, this is my first year with the program. Dean would be able to answer that better. But there are 10 of us in the class right now. So there's 10 students and then Dean and Brenda. And we have an adjunct professor right now too.
And we handle a very small number of cases because each case is quite complex in terms of the educational issues, very often the juvenile court issues, very often the mental health issues, very often the special education issues, very often the racial issues and civil rights issues. So each year with 10 law students, we probably handle 15 cases at the most.
Do you coordinate with the Department of Education or Department of Labor at all if there's a need to go further with these issues?
Yes, we deal with the Tennessee Department of Education all the time, sometimes friendly, sometimes adversary, and as many other agencies that have influence on this issue. It's a complicated one. We heard that you heard something about school discipline in Memphis. So it's not just obviously a local issue.
I'm curious about the racial makeup of the 10 students that are actually in your class, and then you did mention the students that you are serving. Of those students, are they racially diverse as well, or are the majority African Americans? Or
I would say we have 2 African American students in the class right now and 1 Hispanic student.
You're talking about our clients, though.
for the students first in the class,
Right,
and then
our
the
law
clients
students,
that you're serving.
right, 3 out of 10 of our law students are students of color, and our clients are quite diverse.
Yeah.
I have one question from the audience, and this has to do with data. I know you said you're focusing on whites and African Americans. Do you have data on Hispanics?
Yes, all of the data, the sources, the CRDC, the Knox County data that's out there, it all includes Hispanic students, as well as Native Americans, Asian, and then also disaggregated by gender. I just narrowed it down for the purposes of time, but it's all there.
And we'll get all of that for our study. You're going to give us the full study for inclusion in our report.
I think I focused on African American students, but I can send you whatever you need.
Yeah, if you have that, we'd like to include that as well. Thank you. Thank you.